All right. Hello and welcome to Align and Grow Rich. I'm your host, TEDRA Chanel. As per usual, we have another amazing guest on with us, Tiffany. We start every single podcast by allowing our guests to introduce themselves, but also tell me what your zone of genius is.
Yes. Okay. So, hi, I am Tiffany Burns. I like to start with the who are you is usually the titles, right? So, I am wife, mother of three, founder of the Lotus Legacy, which is a personal financial coaching business. And my zone of genius is helping women change the way that they think and feel about money so that they can use more money more intentionally. But then I also like to tell people what I call like the essence of who I am, because again, we always usually start with the titles, but there's so much more to us. We're complex beings. So I also like to lead with the fact that I am a visionary and a dreamer. And so I always like to think about things that are possible in the future. I'm a problem solver. So I like to figure out how I can make these dreams and these visions come
Mhm.
to fruition. I am a lifelong student. So I love learning more about the world around us, learning more about myself, and a chronic champion and encourager of all women, which over the years I have learned to include myself in that because sometimes it's easy for us to encourage and champion other people, but we don't show ourselves that same amount of grace. And so I'd like to call that the essence of who I am. So I always like to share that as well.
Awesome. And how did you even get into this space? What was your mindset before you got here? There had to be something that happened, a
Oh, yeah.
realization. What was the catalyst for you?
Yeah. So I grew up in a house where I didn't really learn about money management. It wasn't something that was explicitly taught. So I say like more was caught than taught. I picked up a lot of just bad habits along the way. Going into early adulthood, I call myself financially clumsy, and just about any money mistake that you could think of, I've probably made it. Overdrafting my accounts, maxing out credit cards, cashing out 401ks. My car almost got repossessed. All of the things I have done it. I went into my marriage with that mindset, and my husband and I got $91,000 in debt in a really short amount of time. And when we realized how much debt we were in, that was like, I call it my "that's so Raven" moment, where I looked at like my life and what it could be. I saw one side that looked like financial stress and struggle, which I was all too familiar with seeing in my family and in my friend groups. And then I saw another life that looked like hope and possibility. And there were vacations and there was ease. And I knew in that moment that I had to do something differently. So I started studying different financial experts and found, a rhythm and a routine and a mindset that worked for us. And we were able to pay that debt off in 3 years. But just learning so much more about money in that time period, I was able to realize that money is not as challenging. It's not as scary. It's not as hard or as complicated as sometimes we think it is. And so with this new realization, I just knew that I had to also share this information and this mindset shift and these new methods of managing our money to create a life that we see for ourselves. Because a lot of us have those visions of what we want our life to look like. We just don't know how to make it happen we don't know how to make the math and the finances align to that vision. So that was my catalyst, like that $91,000 in debt and seeing how I wanted my life to be different. And then that got me here to start my business to helping other women as well.
So how did you come to like it's one thing to know that, oh, you're really shitty with money, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's something totally different to tap into why I'm so shitty with money. So how did you
Mm-hmm.
get to the why I'm so shitty with money?
Yeah. And so you'll hear people in the finance space like talking about your money story, but it's really important for us to look at our environment, to look at our past experiences, to look and see what those things have instilled and things that we've inherited to see like what am I doing with money and how those things to collide. And so, like I mentioned, I grew up in a household where money management wasn't taught. And so I was just watching other adults and seeing what they were doing. And that was normal to me, right?
Mhm.
And so I didn't know how to do anything different. And so it's really important for us to look at our money story, look at how your parents use money. And just like anything else, there's two things that we can do with that, with their behaviors and their habits. We can continue those cycles and those habits and those behaviors, or we can say, oh, I'm not doing anything like that. I'm going to go the complete opposite.
Mhm.
But when it comes to our money is the same way, right? If your parents were spenders, then there's possibility for you to be a spender too, until you recognize those habits and you choose to do something differently. And so it's really important to look at, and even your own experiences with money, right? So I tried to make a budget before we got serious about our debt, and then I will overspend and be like, see, well, I'm still bad with money. And those experiences just reinforce those narratives and those beliefs. And so it's really important. Like the first step is to get curious and get curious about what those past experiences were, what your relationships were with money were. How did other people around you, or past and present, how do people around you treat money? How do they manage their money that they're making? Are they investing and things like that? Like just get curious and just pay attention to the world around you, because that will truly, that's the core of the narratives and the stories that we create for ourselves.
So what is one of the first steps that you share, like with either the first step that you took or the first step that you share or teach with your clients? What is the first step? So once a person has that come to Jesus moment with themselves and say, girl, you gotta do something else. Molly,
Uh-huh.
you in danger, girl. Like this,
Right.
we can't keep doing this. Like what is step number one?
The first step, so I take my clients through a framework that I call the grow framework. And so the first step is the G, which is the goal setting. So I told y'all that I'm a dreamer, I'm a visionary, but I want us to think about our money in such a complex, holistic way that it shakes you to your core and commits you to your financial wellness journey. And so when we think about our finances, usually I hear women, they'll say stuff like, oh, I just want to pay off this debt. I just want to boost my credit. I want to buy this house. But I want y'all to even be more clear and more intentional about those goals and things that you have for yourself. When you buy that home, it's not just for you more often than not. It's usually for your family members. And you're thinking about, okay, if I have my house, I'm going to have gatherings and I'm going to host here and I'm going to do these other things. I want you to really connect to what these money goals will do for your life, how you can use money to enhance and improve your life. So whether that's releasing your job, right? Whether that's becoming work optional and having that financial stability, going to the grocery store. It could be as simple as going to the grocery store and not have to worry about, do I have enough money in my bank account to buy these groceries? Like, but we have to think about how we can use money as a tool to build our lives, and not just, again, those superficial goals of paying off debt or just buying a house. Like there's so much more to it than that. And so the first step really is to think about the goal, the big picture, right? Like take a step back and what do you want your life to look like? And how can we start to align your finances to create that life? So that's step number one.
Okay. So I'm a strong believer in money is just energy.
Mm-hmm.
And you attract money based on your energetic output.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a strong believer in that. I am someone who went from not having jack to
Yeah.
having the cars repossessed to having to live in a roach infested apartment because it was all I couldn't afford. But it was $578 a month.
Yeah.
I truly come from a space of not having it to go into a space of having it and then some, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Money is just energy. And so how would you so once we recognize and acknowledge our money story, how do we become an energetic match to the goals and the lifestyle that we're manifesting?
Oh yes. Yeah. So then we start to have so after we get curious, because when I think about money mindset, I usually take my clients, it's a three-step process to switch your money mindset. And you can apply this to just about anything. So first you want to get curious. So we talked about like looking at your money story, looking at your past experiences, and then we need to start challenging those stories and things that when I had, because again, I have a very similar money story. Like I didn't grow up with a lot of money. I did just about anything with money, and money treated me the same way in return. I had a client recently that called herself a financial fuckboy. Um, and again, like, we say we're going to do better and then we don't. Like we're on and we're off. Like we just had I had a really toxic relationship with money, and a lot of people can relate to that. But once you start to realize that what I am doing is not working, you have to start challenging your beliefs, your actions, your behaviors, and then all of your outcomes and stuff will align. So when I think about like my change, like I had to change my physical environment. Like I could not hang around the same people. I could not do the same things. I couldn't even like think, like I had to challenge the way that I thought about money. I could no longer see budgeting as a tool that is going to restrict me. I had to see it as something that is going to help me organize my finances in a way that prioritizes the goals and the mission of my life, right? We have to truly like challenge and change how we are doing things with money, again, whether that's people, whether that's behaviors. We have to again, I like how you said it's like money is energy. We have to like raise our vibration. Like we have to change our whole like posture and attitude towards money. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Like, how did that even happen? How sway? I didn't even touch anything. Um, but I'm very repetitive, and I'm a strong believer in changing your environment. Your
Mm-hmm.
environment can either help you or
Yeah.
it can hurt you.
Yeah.
And so many people are in that comfort zone. Like, this is home.
Mm-hmm.
I've lived here all my life, these are my people. They may not be great, but they're my people.
Yeah.
When you make a decision, once you
Mm-hmm.
realize, bro, I'm very uncomfortable. Like my
Yeah.
life is nothing is changing. And we all heard this saying, nothing changes if nothing changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's imperative that you change your environment. You might have
Yeah.
to pack up like I did a year and a half ago, load up what you can in your car and move in order to
Yeah.
really have a whole different experience.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I have experienced that too, like changing your environment, like the things that you were doing. And I think in our community, especially, like changing is sometimes used as like a negative thing, like, oh, you changed, right? Like, and we're sometimes resistant
Indeed.
or hesitant to that change, right? We're resistant or hesitant to that change because we don't want people to look at us different or look at us funny or think that money is the thing that changed us. No, I wanted more for myself. I wanted more for my life. And I read this in a book recently where it was talking about like our quote unquote comfort zones, right? Like it's not even comfortable. A lot of times we're not happy where we are, but we're just so familiar with it
Yes,
that
what
we
you know.
refuse to do different things. And so, again, like you don't even have to be comfortable with what's familiar, but you have to get to a point where, and then I was talking about this in my stories recently, where either by choice or by force, life is going to have you move in a direction that is where you're supposed to be. And so I like to help people make it by choice. Right? Like if you know you want something different, you can choose to do different things.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's difficult, especially when you think about just different like family dynamics and relationships and things like that, where we feel some sort of obligation to maintain those type of relationships. I'm not saying that you have to cut everybody off and that you can't talk to your family members or things like that, but there are definitely boundaries that could be set. There are
Mhm.
different situations and scenarios that you might not want to put yourself in. I was talking to a client recently and she's like, every time we go out to dinner with my family, they always expect me to pay. Like, so then I'm not going to dinner with y'all if you expect me to pay, like the expectation. And I'm going to make a boundary and create that. If I do go to dinner with y'all, then the expectation is that I'm not going to be the one taking care of this. Everybody will take care of themselves. And so, again, like whether it's by editing the situations and scenarios and the environments that we're in with them, not saying that we have to completely cut people off and eliminate those relationships, but we might need to edit them. Or making sure that we start to create and enforce some really strong boundaries with how we are protecting ourselves so that we can get to where we want to be.
Yeah. You really are a product of your environment. And
Mm-hmm.
if people around you have poor money habits, chances are you do too, right?
Yeah.
We tend to hang around who we are, period.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And if you want to have a different experience, like I said, you really do have to change. You just
Yeah.
have to change it. And I've done it. And it's not always cute. It's not always pretty, but it's always what needed to be done. And I'm never regretful.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And like I consider myself an introvert, but over the years, I have, because
Mm.
I am on a path and a desire to create wealth, I had a goal to meet more millionaires. That was my goal at the beginning of last year. And not just, I'm sure there's millionaire next door that are people that might have money that I secretly didn't know, but I want to know millionaires that got the money. I want to see how they live. I want to see their heart. I want to see how they made their money. I want to be able to be in these spaces. So I'm comfortable in these spaces. So when we're having money conversations, you remember this space is not foreign to me. And I do believe in God and God being so intentional and gracious that he allowed me to be in spaces with people who got the money,
I call it
and see
old
how they,
money.
yes, and to see how they live, to see how they spend, to see how they give. And they are generous, not just even in only their finances, but they're generous in their stories, in their knowledge, in their success. They want to see more people win and survive and thrive in different spaces. So, um, you might not have people in like that in your direct vicinity right now, but you can start to attract and request what it is that you need in your life. Like God, universe, whatever you believe in, start aligning and sending the people my way that could support me on my journey so that I'm not alone. Because as human beings, we aren't supposed to do this alone.
Yeah. I used to have that same prayer. I used to say that I really want to be in rooms with people with old money, not new money, because new money and old
Mhm.
money is different. The energy is
Yeah.
different. The dynamic is different. The conversation is different, right? And so we have to recognize that there are things that will start to happen. Be careful what you pray for, right? Be careful what you ask for, because the thing in your norm, in your current reality, some things will start to just fall off and it don't make
Mhm.
no sense. And you're like,
Mhm.
what the hell? I was in a
Mhm.
happy marriage or a great relationship, or I was at a job that I loved. And then all of a sudden you getting evicted and you don't know
Yeah.
why. You're losing your job and you don't know why people are hating you. You beefing like Chris Brown and Quavo and you don't know why. Hello. Oh my God, that beef just gave me so much life. Oh, that diss track. Anyway, we're not gonna talk. That's not why we're here. But let's get back focused. Things will start to happen,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
you have to recognize, oh, this is what I asked for
Uh-huh.
versus resisting,
Yeah.
right? Because if you want to be in rooms with people with old money, and you've never been in a room with a person with old money, the things that you do have to change, no? So things around you are going to start to change. You
Yeah.
just need to recognize that and say, okay, I'm going to go with the flow. I'm going to trust. I ended up moving from Houston to Nashville. And when I tell you, money in Nashville is just different.
Mm.
The money here is different.
Yeah.
The people here are so different. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I prayed and I asked for this.
Yeah.
And now I live in a building with millionaires. It's what I asked
Mhm.
for. But just a few
Yep.
years ago, girl, I was broke.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford to pay attention. But now I'm here. Right. But now I'm here. But I just think about, what if I wouldn't have moved? What if I
Right.
would have stayed in that toxic situation?
Mhm.
Gorilla gluing it together and saying, oh, maybe one day he'll be better. Right. I
Yeah.
would still be back in Houston in that same shitty situation as opposed to where
Yeah.
I am now.
And there's like we said, there's times where we are so familiar with situations that we just allow the dysfunction of it to just
Hmm.
remain, no matter how uncomfortable we are, and then we can feel that it's out of alignment. I've heard like these, like those catastrophic type of events, like the beefs and the evictions and the layoffs and things like that, described as like um, a
Intervention.
divine like disruption.
Yeah.
And it truly is things to shift the course of your life. Like allow those things to they're not going to break you. They're uncomfortable as hell. Like we always talk about this like growth and like healing journey is something that's beautiful.
Mhm.
No, it hurts like hell. It's
It
uncomfortable.
does.
It's you gonna be ugly crying a lot, probably.
Yes. Yeah, for
It's
sure.
so necessary. And when you get into these different spaces and you start to meet these new people and have these new experiences, really start to relish in the beauty of them, like you said, because a lot of times these are things that we ask for. It might be your like instinct to shrink back when you start to meet people and when you start to have these new experiences, but just keep leaning into, this is the person that I am becoming. This is the life that I'm creating for myself. And do not allow yourself to go back to what is familiar, what kept you small in the first place. So yeah, it's really important for us to like lean into that discomfort and allow those disruptions to change the course of our lives.
Yeah. I think divine destruction happens when you don't move when spirit wants you to move.
Listen,
That's a
by choice
bar.
or by force, by choice or by force. Like if
Yeah.
you're not going to move, I'm going to have the situation crash and burn, because I
Yeah.
tried to invite you out gently. I tried to whisper. I placed it on your spirit. I kept nudging on your spirit and calling you to this thing, and you did not move. And so
Mm-mm.
I'm going to break it so that you could get to where you need to be.
Yeah.
That's happened to me. I speak from a real personal place with that one, like, because
Oh,
that's been my story. Oh yeah, like I
oh,
know that one all too well. Like, girl, you're not moving. I told you to move. Let me go ahead and break it, and now you can move.
yeah. 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 Yeah, I've been there a few times because I don't want people, thinking that it's always catastrophic, that it always has to be like destruction. It doesn't always have to
Hmm.
be that tower moment where everything crashes and burns. No, you were warned, you were
Hmm.
given an out many
Yeah,
times, and you
yeah,
just chose not to take it. And
yeah,
now God is like, okay, we're just gonna throw a whole mountain on top of it, and here you are. So it doesn't
yeah.
always have to be that way. Just recognize it for what it is. This is God giving you what you want. But I think if it's not dressed up in a bow and in a box, then it's not changed. This ain't what I asked for. This is not. No, it's not always going to be the easiest thing to do. It's not always
Hmm.
easy to come to terms with the fact that your relationship is trash. That ain't your man. That ain't your woman. You know what I mean? That
Right.
ain't easy, right? We
Hmm.
we ignore all the red flags. No, but I'm a just caress
I'm gonna
him and
stick beside him.
I'm a stick with that's my man, my man, my man. And God is like, no, that is not your man. But we
Yeah,
want that to be our man, or we want that
yeah.
to be our house for forever,
Hmm.
or we want
Yeah.
that to be our career, or whatever the
Yep.
case may be. But there's always something bigger and better on the other side.
Hmm.
Always.
Always, always. And it's so important for us to trust the, we always hear people talk about trust the process, right? But to trust that the first steps might not be easy. I think about like babies or toddlers when they start to walk. Like it's not always graceful. Like when you start to walk in alignment with the life that God is calling you to, like it's not always going to be smooth sailing. And I feel like sometimes we expect it to be. But give yourself a lot of grace as you start to shift your relationship with money, as you start to change your experiences, as you start to create and enforce boundaries, as you start to shift your life. Give yourself some grace, because it takes some getting used to. Again, that's not what's familiar to us yet. And so we have to be really patient with ourselves as we continue or begin our journeys, because that discomfort might make you want to throw in the towel. But
Yeah.
again, you need that process for you to kind of grow and mature into the next level of wherever God is taking you.
Yeah, I've taught money mindset for a number of years, and there is an exercise that my old mentor taught me. And it started with a quote from A Course in Miracles, and it goes, "You can only keep what you give away." And because I believe that money is energy, I believe that the energies that you put back, a law of the universe says it has to come back to you, right?
Yeah.
So what is like a money exercise, or I don't know that you have one. You may not even have one that you teach your clients, but is there one? And if there is, what is it?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. Okay, so one of my favorite things to do though is to help them to really appreciate and find contentment and gratitude in their situation. And so it's a almost like a meditation that I have them do. And you have to imagine yourself laying in a meadow of flowers. And as you're laying there, the flowers begin to bloom around you. And
Hmm.
each of them is something that your money has done for you. So whether that is put a roof over your head, pay for your kids' daycare, allowed you to travel on a vacation and different things like that. Every single flower is um, a new a new opportunity and a new thing that money has been able to do for you. You get up from that metal because at first you're laying down and just allowing like the light and the flowers to bloom around you. You get to plant seeds for the future. And so then you get to pick what plants you see or what seeds you plant. And so you could think about what you want your future life to look like, right? So we build in seeds of real estate empires. Are we planting seeds of generational wealth and investments for our kids? Like, what do those seeds, where are we putting money in those organizations that we give? Because, we think about money management. I'm sure you know this too. Like, there's more to money than just spending it, right?
Hmm.
Like you said, you get to give money away as well. And so think about like the organizations and the things that you will support and the money that you will give away. And so all of those are seeds that you will plant into the ground. And so that one is a pretty cool one because I have clients like go through and like think about all of the flowers that are around them. You get to bloom and appreciate the things that money is doing for you right now. Because sometimes we do get conditioned to think about, oh, well, I don't have enough, or, it's not right where I want it to be yet. And we can start focusing on the lack. But there's so much abundance around us already. And then we get to plant seeds for our future so that we can reap that and enjoy that harvest and those flowers in the future. So that's one of my favorite ones to do.
I love that. So before we end, I see a couple of the books that I've already read behind you, Atomic Habits, I'm reading right now.
Oh, yeah.
I always like to ask people, what are a couple of book recommendations that you would throw out there?
Hmm. Yeah, so I really like so I usually do a lot of like self-help,
Mm-hmm.
productivity, self-development type books. And so Atomic Habits is my top book for like that habit creation because again, a lot of us need to create new habits when it comes
Yeah.
to our money and in our lives, right? Like there's times where we could be going on a jog or working out, but instead we're sitting and scrolling on Instagram, right? Like there's other things that we could be doing. So how to create habits. I love his approach to it was is
Yeah.
taking things that you're already doing and making these like small changes that compound over time. So Atomic Habits is my top pick for your productivity. When it comes to financial books, I really like Get Good with Money by Tiffany the Budgetnista. That's my big sis. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
we share a name, but her
Mm-hmm.
book has um, a really comprehensive approach to how to look at your finances as a whole. A lot of really practical and tactical information and advice in that book. When it comes to money mindset, I really like a book called Get Rich Lucky Bitch by Denise. Oh gosh, I'm gonna forget her last name. Um, I cannot remember her last name right now. By Denise, Get Rich Lucky Bitch. I think there's only one out there. But I like how she talks about your money mindset in really supportive and helpful ways. And then the last one, the one that's back there is Believe Bigger by Marshawn Evans Daniels. I quote that book all the time. But that one just really helps us to live a life of purpose. If you feel like your life is not in alignment, that book is really good with helping you bring more clarity to what you want your life to look like because she has some really good exercises and to help you see where you might be out of alignment and how to give your life more color and more purpose and more vision.
Awesome. And the last question is, what are one or two huge Delulu goals that you have? A couple of things that you want to manifest in 2024.
Oh, I was. All right, we're gonna go ahead and put this one out here. So I want to own a creative space. So I have been. This year I want to host a bunch of events for my business, and I've been having the hardest time finding the
Mm,
right kind of space for what I'm envisioning. And usually, if there's a problem, right, like if you can't find the solution, like you
good.
create it.
Yep.
And so I literally was driving around today looking at venues and places that I could open up a space. So that would be my Delulu goal for
Hmm.
2024, because that was not what we came into this year with.
Okay.
And so we just throwing that one on there. But I would love to manifest that into something, and have that space be open by the end of the year. That would be pretty magical.
Yeah, that's how I always create everything. It starts for me first. It's for
Hmm.
me first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And you
thank you
feel more
so much.
connection to it when it's for
Oh
you,
yeah.
right? Like you have
Yes.
more passion, you fight for it different when it's really yours.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on. Is there anything else that you want to leave the listeners with?
Yeah. So one of the things that I always talk about, again, a quote from the Believe Bigger book, is you have to face it to fix it. And so there's a lot of times in our lives where there's things that we just refuse to face. We avoid it, we ignore it, we just go along with it. But in order to change your life, you have to face it in order to fix it. So I like to leave with that little nugget, for the listeners.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Tiffany. And thank you guys so much for listening to yet another episode of Align and Grow Rich. I'm your host, TEDRA Chanel. And as we always say, go out and manifest some epic shit. Bye.